Hello and welcome back to the Sell Like You podcast with me, Harriet Mellor. And today we are joined by Emma Hollins from Synergy, the Principal Experience Strategist. Welcome, Emma.
Thanks so much for having me, Harriet. I'm super excited.
Good. I'm glad to hear. So I went to go and watch Emma in one of the sessions at the State of Social a few months ago. And I was scribbling notes away because I was like, experience, what does that mean? And I just felt like you gave just this real world, like real world examples and just no BS. And I also really love your dad, like who I've never met. So I'm really excited to chat more. And I reckon like your dad's super famous now. So I hope he's got his own page somewhere. Emma, tell everyone listening, what is a principal experience strategist and what does that mean at Synergy?
Do you know, Harriet, I really hate that question. When people ask, I'm like, oh my goodness, how do I explain it? Because every day feels like a different day for a principal experience strategist. But I think, the great thing about doing a State of Social earlier in the year was I had to figure out actually what do I do to be able to explain it to everyone. So really a principal experience strategist is about looking at all of the moments that your customer or your employee or whoever your target audience is, all of the moments that they really interact or have experienced your brand throughout the life stage or life cycle of their engagement with you. And then from there, it's about understanding, okay, well, how do we actually sort of make that experience better? How do we create value for our customers, whether that's, by delivering value or solving problems, and how we can really, by enhancing that experience that the customer has, drive better business outcomes, but also leave that customer with a much better perception or sentiment about your business or your brand. And so at Synergy, my role is really, doing just trying to understand, where are our customers at? And we have obviously a lot of customers servicing the majority of Western Australia. Where are our customers at in relation to energy and, what's important to them in relation to energy? And then understanding, okay, well, how can we help create value for those customers to help them progress along their energy journey?
And I think, with experience, I've mentioned this just before we hopped on, is that I think it can get very much tainted within does it mean we can sell them more? Does it mean we can market to them better? Well, yeah, it does because we know so much more about them. But it's about the experiences you said from when they come on, during and engaging, and then all the way through to the end if the end happens.
100%. And I think that's, there are, like with anything commercial, there's always going to be benefit for both sides. So, you as a business, you have your targets, you have your things to achieve. But my belief is that if you really, focus on that customer, who are they? What do they need? What's important to them? And you really focus on trying to deliver genuine, authentic value to them and understanding them as a human being, then that will drive your business outcomes because that customer will be so, stoked with their experience with you that they will kind of do the things that you're asking them to do as if you are delivering them value in the process. But yes, we look at that lifetime journey, right? So, for energy, that is something that goes on forever. But for other brands or companies, that might just be something that's a moment in time or, pops up every, few years or whatever the time period or the business might be. But it's really about looking at, when do they come to us and when is it important for us to show up in their lives, and then how would they like us to show up in their lives at that point in time.
And how do you find, because obviously, there's all these surveys that go out and do you have 2 minutes and can you leave us 5 stars? And, and I go into stores and then they're like, you'll get a survey. Can you give me 5 stars? And I'm like, sure. And so what, like that surface level, that to me is the Bobby Basic of customer experience or customer service, maybe not even experience. How is what you're doing different to then just, can you fill out a survey? Can you give us, markers out of 10 and send it back?
100%. I think that to me is almost sometimes bad customer experience.
Yeah.
it's Christmas shopping and you've got a million stores, you're carrying a million bags, and you're standing at the counter and you're trying to just get out of that, shoe store as quick as you possibly can. You can't even get your hands free to tap with your iPhone, or pay with your iPhone. And then they say, sorry, can we just ask you, could you rate us? Could you put everything down so you could press this button on the machine? Like that's not good customer experience. I understand they are trying there to understand how their customers have, felt through that experience in store or whatever experience it was. But truly good customer experience is thinking about, okay, well, where is our customer at? What's going on? How might they be, encountering us in this moment? And then feedback is always so important, but with any kind of interaction, whether that's feedback or service or informations or product, you should be providing that or creating that experience in a way that feels really easy for the customer based on what's going on in that moment. So, if we look at creating feedback, we really want that to feel like a micro interaction that you don't even think about, you don't even realize you've done it, but your experience is then optimized as a result.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you Bupa Health Insurance, as an example, is really good at these sort of micro interactions. So like often when you're, reading some of their content or you're, in their portal, there'll just be these really quick little checks that like everything is still on track for you. And so it's so easy. It's like a click, and it's done, in some cases it's done to help really then optimize the content that you're getting or the advice that you're getting. So it might be like, hey, was this content relevant for you? Help us to, show you better content. And then, it refreshes. Even on TikTok, as an example, it's that natural scrolling and it just wants you to check that, yep, that was relevant, and it changes the algorithm. So for the customer, you can really see like, yep, I've taken a second to click that button and there's a benefit for me as a result.
Yeah, awesome. And so with those experience moments then, is there an ideal time? Is there the amount of times you'd want to capture sort of data? And then also, where does the data go? Like, how are we, because I think there's also that element of fill this out, leave us a 5-star, and then it's like, cool, tick. We it goes into a number, but then actually, how do we take anything that's not a 5-star and do something with it? There's a few questions in there for you, Emma. So I'll let you work out which ones you want to answer first.
Yeah, I'll wrap them all into one.
Thank you.
With that, the frequency of feedback, it really does depend on your journey and how frequent that customer is engaging with you. And also to that, how long that engagement is and how many tasks or actions they're trying to complete. Some companies will choose that, depending on if you've got a lifetime relationship with that customer, maybe we only try and get feedback from that customer once every 90 days. And that kind of is enough to say, capture sort of the stage that they're at in their journey. But sometimes customers might move through the stages quite frequently. So, say if you're buying a car, for example, you might be browsing for a long time, but then, when that actual car comes up and, you've decided what you want and you're going for it, that whole journey completes quite quickly in a matter of, days or, in some cases hours.
Yeah.
But that's also a really stressful time for the customer. So, thinking about the customer and putting yourself in their shoes, you might try and talk to them or capture some feedback once in the browsing experience, again, framing that as, help us make sure we're providing you with the best recommendations or the best options for you. And then you might say, oh, they've got so much going on right now, like we're just going to talk to them after they've signed the deal or after we've lost that lead. So really, I think looking at, how timing is that journey, what is the frequency of interaction, and then what is the customer thinking and feeling in that moment? Is it the right moment to talk to them? And kind of basing it from there. But there is really no one size fits all. It really depends on, your customer and the journey they're going through.
And so, yeah, sorry, go on, Emma.
I was then going to say, in terms of capturing that feedback, the really important thing with feedback is that it is being actioned. Because if the customer is taking time to give you that feedback, you then want to make sure that they can actually see the outcome of that effort on their part. Sometimes it's things that you might, be tracking over a long term and like that customer's not going to really see it, but you would hope that if they came back to you in 2 years' time, if they had any feedback, it might be addressed. But if that customer's taken that time to go into depth with the feedback, depending on like the way of capturing it, really important, whether it's just feedback or a complaint, to make that customer feel heard and seen, particularly if you're in a business that's working one-to-one with that customer. If your customers are, dealing with customers en masse, it's a bit different. But if you're in that sales environment and you're trying to, you've met that customer, that customer by name or that lead by name, and you've been trying to build that relationship, the worst thing you can do is just get that feedback and then just never see them again.
Yeah. Yes. And interestingly, so like an experience comes to mind where I keep getting text messages about a service, my car to be serviced. So we have got an old 4-wheel drive that we chuck the dogs in and we go anything dirty happens in that car. And so we get it serviced every year. It's always been serviced. And then the guy who I was dealing with at Toyota, I've had it for 10 years, he's gone to a different location. And I'm like, do I drive to that location? Because it's about 45 minutes away and it's not convenient. And I genuinely would think of doing that because he's so good. And I then get the text messages, your car's due for service, we miss you, we haven't seen you, like this is due. So I have replied and told them on the phone multiple times that I believe the customer service has gone downhill since Michael's left and gone to a different location, so still within the business. And I'm trying to find somebody else that will help me and give me the same service that he used to. No reply, no callback. I just got okay, thank you, hung up. I then got a text message. So this is now 3 years ago. He'd moved to a different location. I've tried 3 different places and I'm like, whatever. And I got another text message saying, hey, we miss you. It's been we haven't seen you for a while. And I replied, text message replied of thanks for the notification. However, I haven't been that impressed by the service and I've been exploring other what they call dealerships. And no reply, no phone call, no nothing. And I keep doing it and I'm like, at what point do I have, at what point are you going to ring me and say, do you give us some feedback? Could you explain what you mean by that? Like, what has changed? What's happened? Can you get me back in? Because I'm getting my car serviced every year. I'm getting it every year. I'm paying somebody anywhere between $500 to $1,000 every single year to get it serviced. And yet still no communication.
Absolutely. And that's such a great example, because in that case, like when whether you entered that dealership through buying your car or when it just entered it through service, you've developed a personal relationship with that person. And so for that, whilst you're interacting with the dealership and the brand of the dealership, like you're really interacting with the person there. And so when they try and turn around and be like, send generic emails, be like, hey, we miss you. I'm like, hey, you're a chicken mum. You're getting 40,000 other people saying, hey, like I'm just a name on a list. Whereas, if a person reached out and said, hey, Harriet, well, we just want to say, Michael's left the business, but we, know that you have been having your car serviced with him and he's been looking after you for so many years now. My name is so-and-so and like I would like to take that over and, excited to get to meet you and look after your car for you. That's a really nice, transition, but they don't do that. It goes into their automated emails, and I think they've tried to, from what it sounds like from those comms, they've tried to make it sound personal, but we're not idiots, right? We know when like a one-to-one or if it's a one-to-many.
Yeah. Yeah. And also this is the business we're in, is experience. When, in sales, we're all about the experience. And I think for me, I think the other side for our business is, we do onboarding surveys, we do midway surveys, we do wrap-up surveys. Now, the onboarding is gathering data, so it's more so data gathering and expectation management. And then the midway point is then, this is what we've seen so far. Are you on track? Are you happy with what we've done so far? And then the wrap-up then is give us your experience, because I believe you never want to get a week in, let alone halfway in, and not have achieved or not have met expectations, or at least exceeded expectations, to then be able to continue. You don't want to ask at the end of the 6 months or the end of the 12 months, or when they're then wrapping up, and be like, how was it? Oh, well, we didn't feel like we got this, or this didn't really work, or the other team didn't love this. I can't solve it then. I can't do anything about it then. So for me, I want the data, and I would much rather someone find a little tiny hole and be like, that, you could just improve that one piece. I'm like, give it to me, please. And the only one we got, and I rang the guy like directly, and he said it'd be great just to have like a different structure, or a way that we can actually follow the information in a maybe in a visual form. And I rang him and I was like, thank you so much, like, tell me more. And I'd worked with him one-on-one, but now on the reflection piece, he was like, well, now I've got to keep going, and now I'm not sure whether I do that first or that second. And when I'm with him, it's fine, but then outside of that, how do we keep going? And so he worked with me, and we built all these visuals, and I was like, which one makes sense? And we went through and we designed a visual, and then he was like, yes, that's good. I was like, right, now all of my clients get one. So every client we work with gets this roadmap of what they need to do. It's all personalized and tailored to them, but it's in a document that can be either an A4, an A3, however big you want it. Print it, stick it on your wall. Now everybody knows what needs to be done. And so I think those pieces, for me, I want someone to say, oh, there's actually something you could improve, because otherwise I'm just like, well, everyone seems really happy, and we're getting great results, but surely there's something we could do better. And therefore I want that. And I think that gathering piece, but we do something with it. So I think it's very, I feel like I can push a bit harder to be like, give us one thing we can improve, because then I'm like, I'm going to actually do something with it, and you're going to benefit from it when you give me that feedback.
Absolutely. You talked front well, because I think, that's similar to what we would do in experience design by interviewing customers to understand their needs and wants and expectations. And usually if you've got a big customer group, you would do that with a sample and then apply that en masse. But for you, it's actually having the one-to-one relationship, and then you can actually really tailor that experience throughout that journey.
Yeah. And I think that goes back, and as I said before, like, when you were speaking at the session, I was, writing notes down, because I think I was, I want to engage with people that are sharing really insightful information, but also something where it's like, oh, I either agree, or yes, this is a real, key point. And something you said, which I wrote down, which I've got here, which said, stop filling pain points and instead maximize moments that matter.
Yeah.
Tell me what you mean by that, like, for anybody listening.
Absolutely. So when people think about experienced designers, what a lot of experienced designers fall into the trap of doing is saying, like, okay, we get to know our customer. Our customer tells us there's a pain point here, so we'll fix it. And then they've told us there's another one here, so we'll fix it. And then you just get this really like flat experience. And I think when we think about, customer experiences, there's peaks and there's troughs, and those troughs are usually tied to pain points. So you're not wrong to fix the pain points. Like, you don't want customers to be having a really frustrating experience with you. But if you just fix the pain points, it's quite a flat experience with no real standout moments. And I think we've seen that a lot in like the airline industry as an example. Like, if you go to book with any airline, it's like the same form that takes you to the same next page to book your flight, that takes you to the same page where you can pick all the optional add-ons about, do you want car insurance, do you want carbon neutral, etc., before you pay, and then you get an email confirmation. And like, that experience is really like androgynous to every single brand.
Take the logo away, you've no idea where you are.
Exactly. So what you want to do, you do want to feel like particularly the bad pain points, but what you want to do is really focus on like maximizing those moments that matter, and really creating that delight for customers along the way. And it's that delight and, that is really memorable to the customer that they'll hang on to. Like, you can have had a few dips, But if you've done something that was above and beyond that customer's expectations, and if you have done something that really allows your brand to shine through, then, you've got that really powerful brand moment that sort of remains with the customer. So like a great example of that for me is Bank as an example. So they're like a neobank, really wanted to change the banking game, and they're really targeted at young Australians. And so they want to help young Australians save better. So they have in their app like this Save Up 1,000 challenge, which is, just an app-based thing where you put money into a savings bucket every week. But it's done really well with it's almost like scratching off a scratch and win card, great animation. And then once you complete it, they literally send you like a key ring that says, "Welcome to the Save Up 1,000 Club." And so you like get into this like exclusive club for completing this challenge. And so it's so well branded and it's so well done and so unexpected. Like when this like merch rocks up at your door, that you're like, that was really fun. That was cool. Like, and so that moment, even if there's moments where like minor issues with the bank or the brand, there are those moments that they've done so well in my mind that have really built that trust for me and built that sentiment about them that has me, telling thousands of people about them.
Yeah. And I've heard that story from your session. And I think it is those standout moments, because I know you've shared other stories, especially that session as well, around, where you've had poor experiences. And then it is that rule of, you have a bad experience, you tell 10 people, you have a great experience, you tell one or two. So
Right.
it is really so important to manage the potential poor experiences. Now, for people that are, this sounds great, let's get some data. Now, for me, I'll give you a bit of my experience, is I find that the onboarding midway endpoint, great. Brooke manages all of that. It's part of the process. We have to do the onboarding because it means we do a really good job for creating and delivering. Midway point, fine. Endpoint, fine. But if we've got a client that's say ongoing, or if somebody's engaged with maybe our online program, we struggle to get feedback during that time. Any tip or advice, especially for people that have got, because if I think of like our client and our listener, they are often dealing with clients over a 3-year period.
Yeah.
Aren't necessarily, yes, we could do a 6-month and a 1 year and then a 18-month and a 2 year. How do we do it if it's more ongoing? How do we get people engaged? Any tools or ideas around how to do that?
Yeah, I would go back to there about delivering the value and like really creating a great moment for that customer or for the customers en masse, then to try and capture that feedback or that engagement again. Particularly, use the example of like an online program as an example. Like that is, can be fairly easy just to sign up to from like the comfort of your own home, and, you don't really interact that much. And so then what you're trying to do in getting feedback or engagement beyond that program is really bridging the seismic chasm of like, I've just been able to like watch this and follow it along and do it my own time. And it's been, particularly if you're an introvert, it's been like not too hard to like, haven't had to reach out and talk to people. And then all of a sudden you're flipping and you're asking them to actually, okay, well, now we want to really hear from you individually. And so I think the key there is like looking, at the end of those programs or at the end of the last interaction, or if it's been a while and you need to create a new interaction, what can you create or deliver that provides value for that customer that would make them want to interact with that? Because just coming to me off the back of something and being like, hey, you did one of our programs, like, what's next? How do you feel? Like, that's kind of overwhelming. Where if it's like, hey, this is the next step that we've created for you to walk through, and you can unlock this, this, and this, is a way to sort of extend that engagement. And again, then you can build in those micro moments to be able to capture that feedback. Like you could be, you could create a choose your own adventure pathway where it was like, where you can inadvertently get feedback from that session or that workshop or the last interaction to really personalize the content or the value you're creating for them in the next step.
And it's like you said, it's about being in the right at the right moment, creating that value and then asking. And I think that's, from that survey perspective, I fully subscribe to that. And that's been, do something great, get them on board, ask them a question. And so even from your session, we changed at what point do we request feedback?
Yeah.
And we did it at the end of the very first session, because that's the moment where they're like, wow, we're going to learn so much. This is really, and then we capture the excitement and then what are they most excited for and what are they hoping they're going to achieve, because now they've had insight. I don't then therefore need it, the next session, but I might get it 3 or 4 sessions later. So it then means, as you said, because everyone's so busy and filling out the forms and is it going to go anywhere? And I think then giving them that personalized response, which we do a lot of personalized work. So, it's very rare that you'll get something automated from us. Yes. Because although, yes, it's easier and it's quicker and it's more cost effective, it's not personal. And we are dealing with organizations and we're teaching an outreach program, which is based on personal touches. It's not based on, hi, Emma, we miss you. Like, click here, because that doesn't feel like it. Whereas if I said, hey, Emma, it was so great to chat to you 2 years ago. I know at that point you were doing this. Now we put this on and I think it could be right for you. I've noticed you've moved, or we've done this and I know you love dogs, or I love this, or like, then we can then send something out. But I think those elements is that, especially for, your experience at the moment being in such a large organization, being able to tailor those moments and personalize those moments should highlight to everybody that thinks they have a big business. It's not as big as Synergy. And therefore, we can still make the moments matter, rather than just being there to solve a problem or tick a box or say, yay, we got some feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that topic of personalization comes up a lot in experience design. And it's not always, about personalization for personalization's sake, but it's about understanding, okay, well, what are the different needs of people that come to us? And you might just identify 4 and then 4 key needs of your customers as an example. And then you can really, just tailor or differentiate the offering to create different sources or forms of value that meet those needs. And that might be all the personalization that you need to do. Depending on, again, the relationship and depending on the brand. But, when I think sometimes when people say personalization, like, it can feel scary because, well, I need to get all of this data and then I need to, figure out how to customize it for like each and every single person. But you can kind of scale it back as a starting, like, okay, I've identified customers really are coming to me for these 3 reasons. That will put them in a track depending on which one they fall into, and then start to tailor it from there.
Yeah, okay. And what has been your, like, obviously with the work you're doing, what's been, do you think, the most impactful experience activity that you've done so far?
Like, impactful from a customer perspective or from a business perspective?
More. Surely something we can find that's done both. No, you can choose.
So I worked on the WA electric vehicle charging network, which was a really fun project because it was kind of the first of its kind in WA and Australia, in the sense that we were creating charging stations from the very north of WA in Kununurra down to the very south in the Eucla, customers to charge their electric vehicles. And that was sort of a joint initiative between the state government, Horizon Power and Synergy. And that's a very technical project because there are a lot of really important things that you need to consider about when building these charging stations out in the elements. But when you sort of go back to the customer experience of charging your electric vehicle in the middle of nowhere in a town they've never been to before, with electric vehicles aren't like fuel. If you run out of charge, like, you're getting it on a flat truck back to Perth. You're not just getting a jerry can and
the electric jerry can, like
electric jerry. The technology might evolve because that would be very cool.
Yeah, go down to IGA. Can I grab one of the batteries?
Electrical battery jerry can. You've got. So when we started to sort of unpack this experience of like, I'm getting ready, like I've got a plan out where I'm going to go charge, because the chargers aren't everywhere and they might be full or they might be broken, they might get vandalized. So there's all of these concerns, which makes it almost like anxiety inducing just going on a road trip in your electric vehicle. And so that project was moving quite quickly, and we really just needed to get some customer insight in a really rapid way so that we could actually, make the outcome and output better. And so we did the most rapid prototype testing with some electric vehicle drivers who, came into the office, and we'd set up a life-size charging station but made out of cardboard boxes. Like, it was very lo-fi, but we just, actually gave our sort of participants tasks to complete, like, okay, here's the charging station, like, go charge your car. And watching what they did and getting that feedback for them and really watching them in the context of trying to work through really unlocked some really great things that we needed to change. Like, as an example, everyone had been so focused on the charging, like the building the chargers that worked, that we kind of not even thought about the signage that the customer might need to be able to find the site. And so, unprompted, these customers walked in and were like, well, I assume that a sign has led me to here to find this charging station, because they're not always on the beaten track. So that was just a bit of a light bulb moment, because we were like, oh, well, of course we need signage, but we hadn't even thought about it and we didn't have it in the budget. So that was a great moment for us to be able to go, okay, well, as a business and as a project team, to be able to say, okay, well, we need to change something here. We need to pivot. And then for the customer experience at the end, by setting up a few cardboard boxes and talking to them up front, would be like, which is a very sort of low risk environment, we'd being able to make sure that when we actually did launch and go live, that we had all the things that they needed and expected, and it had worked out all the kinks before we put it out in the world.
Yeah. How amazing. And how did you get them involved in that then? Because they're obviously testing. How was what did that journey look like?
Yeah, totally. And we had a few different relationships with different customers, customer groups going into it. We just recruited a lot of customers that, had an EV. Basically, we wanted.
I love that. I'd be like, me, I go on, let me come.
100%. I'll set the charging station back up.
Yeah.
We wanted to get a really good mix of customers. Like, we did want the customers who had been on road trips before and knew what it was like, but we also wanted customers who, had never charged their EV outside of the house, and, savvy and didn't, were entering this charging station cold turkey, never seen it before. So understanding, and then customers with different types of EVs and different charging behaviors, etc. And then looking at them all come together and, seeing, okay, where are the gaps and where do we need to provide more support or more hand holding to be able
to go through. And that's obviously a large project and obviously well funded by, 3 large organizations. How, we've got businesses of all different shapes and sizes, and they're thinking, okay, well, now I need now I need to look at my business from an experience perspective. Who is best placed? So they haven't got an experienced strategist or an experienced designer. Who should be responsible for that, or who could be potentially responsible for that? And if they find that person, what step one? So somebody's like, this sounds great, I want to start looking at something. Who is it, and what's my step one?
Absolutely. Great question. I think the good thing, particularly, for some smaller businesses or, organizations where people wear lots of different hats, as an example, good thing about customer experience is that, everyone actually is involved in creating it. If you're a customer facing organization, whether that's B2B or B2C, everyone, no matter how removed they might feel, actually contributes towards creating that customer experience. I think in terms of the right person, like, that customer experience can kind of sit anywhere in the organization. Like, it can sit in marketing, it can sit in strategy, it can sit in, your digital and team. It can sit, across the board. But I think finding someone who, has a genuine understanding and compassion for customers, and that, desire to get to know customers, and then that ability to influence, the internal teams, and that sort of drive to improve things or make things better, is always a good candidate for someone who could sort of look after the customer experience. Again, traditionally it does sort of sit within marketing or strategy, but again, it really can sit anywhere depending on what your structure is of your organization. And then I always start by looking at the data that you do have. So, if you have that feedback data, can you dive into that to, look at where the gaps are and where things are. But the best thing you can do is, once you've started, and I would also sort of talk to your internal team and understand, particularly those people who are working on the front line of working with customers, understanding what the big problems are, where they think there's real opportunities. And then I would move straight to trying to talk to customers in some way, shape or form. And sometimes that's a big scale research thing, but other times that can be just talking to a small cross section, just to kind of get a bit of a steer of where you need to be focusing your efforts.
Yeah, and I think from there as well, I think the you're talking there about that subset of data or subset of clients, is that then if they are already engaged, they're going to feel valued because you want their opinion as well. And that's always a great way to gather it. Now, you can use it as part of an onboarding experience for your team, because I'm also thinking that if we did it too often, they might be like, you again, what do you want? I'm busy. I've got, I'm paying for a service, can you leave me alone? But I guess it's finding that sweet spot. But if you're kicking something off, I think that, having that as the guiding light as to what we need. Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when we do any customer research, we always pay customers for their time. So we'll incentivize it, and kind of, recognizing that they might have spent an hour talking to me and that is valuable. So we'll usually pay them. But I think you can really depend on the relationship you've got with your customer and the type of research you're doing. Like if it's if you just want to do a 10-minute survey to check things, you don't need to pay for that. But if you've got no customer insight, you don't really have a great understanding of where those critical moments have been, or you might have an idea, but you want to learn more, or who the customer is, then those qualitative interviews and sitting down with a customer one-on-one and having that chat with them is always a great way to do that. But yeah, you'd need to probably, depending on that relationship, look at incentivizing customers for them.
Yeah. And I think the incentivization, I guess, then puts the value back on their time as well.
Yeah.
We appreciate we're going to get something out of this. We're going to be able to improve, and yes, you'll benefit, but we also appreciate your feedback and your time to be able to do that as well. So yeah, I think that's a really good first step.
Yes.
Anything from your side in terms of, resources? But I mean, are you fairly new in that role? As in, did you come into that role from somewhere else doing the same?
Yes. Yeah. So I was working with an agency called VML for several years, and then I was consulting at Synergy and have moved across.
Oh, awesome. So for your exposure, is there anything that you kind of go to? Where do you get ideas or, books and podcasts, anything like that?
Yeah, awesome. I think all of the above. There are a few sort of online resources that you can sort of look at. There's things like Forrester for more customer experience based theory and research. But if they're people who are just sort of, getting into it, starting out and, might be doing this amongst another role within the organization, I think the best things you can do are to kind of broaden your horizons. Start thinking about the experiences that you have personally with brands in your own life. And, what do they do that works? What do they do that influences you to take action? Or what do they do that's not that great? And then also looking at, trends and sort of researching what's really current and happening for your audience market is really great way to understand, what's important to these people. How can we be providing value for our audience, and, where can we make it relevant for where they are right now?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I like the think about your brands in your life, because I guess, and that's the examples we've talked about today, and then that I've heard you share as well. Because even just having that moment to take on reflection as a team, you can then say, well, I love this business. And funnily enough, I get sent a lot of emails or screenshots of people that do follow-ups, because I'm obsessed with the follow-up. And it's follow-up Friday today, so it's a valid conversation topic, Emma. But I got sent a screenshot because everyone's shopping at the moment, and I find some of the I guess more high-end brands, they will send you a text message once you've shopped with them. And my friend just went and she shopped for the first time at Victoria and Wood, and they've sent her a text message saying, we're so excited to have you in to experience the brand for the first time. Right. You might be able to get the sold out outfit. I've added the other stuff that you like to the wish list, and I've done this. And so they've given this whole experience with a link and where everything is. And if you need me again, my name's Sarah. And, I think things like that just really show, although that's not yes, it is experience, but we're not necessarily being asked for feedback. Right. Whenever you go in and you walk out and you get that text message. I remember I bought a couple of things for gifts over the years through Gucci. And on my birthday, I got a text message being like, are you treating yourself today? And I was like, well, I wasn't going to, but maybe I should come. And, you go in and you get the sparkling water or the champagne, and, and you can happily be in there for an hour and try things on, and, and not buy something or buy something. I think, all of those pieces play in. And I think, just as you said, it's such a great idea to have that conversation, because already already my brain's like, oh, I've got this one. Oh yeah. And then that one. Oh, I can't stand that one. And that was really annoying. And that's why I left. Because then it starts getting people thinking, because if you can bring real life examples from your own experiences into the business that you either work in or that you're building, you can then have an impact and go, well, actually, I know how that made me feel. Yeah. And that was the reaction to how I felt. And therefore I left, or therefore I stayed, or therefore I told more people about it. And so it's really about piecing those things together and then saying, well, how do we have an impact now, knowing what we all know today?
Absolutely. And that's so it. And that's one of my favorite things about my job is, being able to, I'm a bit of a shopaholic myself, but being able to, translate the experiences that I have and how they make me feel, and say, we work in energy and it's completely different, but how could I make the customer feel like that, or create value in the same way that, that Vic and Woods example, or how can we still create value that makes that customer feel like we are on their side?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you, Emma, for sharing your energy. And I loved that from being at State of Social. And I came up to you and was like, I need you on the podcast. Thank you for coming and sharing. And I think experience is a really fun topic. And I think it's, you've given some really good insights, some examples. It's awesome to see such a large organization doing, emphasizing experience, because a lot of people just have to use the services because they need to use the service and there's not many to choose from. But when people care and they actually give a shit, they're going to be able to then come through and say, well, actually, I can give my feedback, but how can we do better in businesses and in our roles as well? So thank you for sharing.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a fun conversation. So great way to start a Friday.